The New York Knicks are your 2025-2026 NBA champions, and because of that, we're going to be taking a little detour on the series and focusing on them today. I'm going to keep the episode a little bit the same, sort of talk about what the season looked like on their way to the championship, but focus more on what's to come for the Knicks. The New York Knicks were coming off a 51-31 record in 2024-25, where they ended up losing the Pacers in the conference finals. This then led to the firing of coach Tom Thibodeau, and they eventually brought in Mike Brown as the new head coach for this team. In the offseason, they extended Mikal Bridges and exercised the team option Ariel Hukporti, drafted Mohamed Diawara with the 51st pick, brought in Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabusele in free agency, and didn't have any major losses. The Knicks came to the year as one of the favorites to win the Eastern Conference, especially with the amount of teams that had been impacted by injuries. This team definitely had championship aspirations after bolstering the lineup in the offseason. This had them coming into the season ranked number 4 in the power rankings. As for the season story, I'm going to focus a little bit less on the regular season and more on their playoff run. The Knicks had a roller coaster of a regular season, looked very solid in the first half of the year, which included them winning the NBA Cup. Jalen Brunson was outstanding during this stretch, and Mikal Bridges had really looked like he was starting to get a bit more comfortable in his role with the Knicks. After the NBA Cup win is when things started to shift in New York. From December 31st to January 19th, the Knicks went 2-9 and looked like a completely different team than we'd been seeing. There were talks about Mike Brown being fired, Karl-Anthony Towns being traded, Mikal being traded, a complete disaster in New York during that stretch. The holes in the bench production and center play, or lack thereof, was all anyone was talking about. I even saw reports of people saying that Cat had zero trade value and this team would never be able to win a championship with him as the starting 5. There were people mocking him to the Pelicans, trying to vanish him to the shadow realm. At the deadline, New York looked to try and address some of these issues by trading away Gershon Yabusele to the Bulls for Dalen Terry, who was then rerouted to the Pelicans for Jose Alvarado. This was done to try and address their lack of point guard depth on that bench unit. The Knicks were 33-18 at the deadline, and whatever shifted after they made these moves clearly worked. They went 20-11 after the deadline and looked like a completely different team, at least that's what we thought. The Knicks came to the end of the season with a record of 53-29, which was good for third in the East and had the matchup against the Hawks in round 1. And just going back to what I said about we thought it was a different team, right before the playoffs, Cat came out and said that he still didn't know what his role was with the team. Not really the best thing fans wanted to hear, especially as their team was going to the playoffs looking to win a championship. In the first round, New York came out and won Game 1, but then quickly found themselves down 2-1 after some heroic efforts from CJ McCollum. This had the media creating a narrative that we could see this Knicks team lose in round 1 to put the cherry on top of what many were calling a very questionable season. After these 2 losses, this team really turned things around. They ended up winning 3 straight games and absolutely embarrassing the Hawks and winning by 51 points in Game 6. This was only a sign of things to come. The Knicks went on to win the next 8 games in a row, sweeping the Sixers and the Cavaliers in the semis and conference finals. This was an 11-game win streak that had the Knicks looking absolutely dominant and possibly even the title favorite regardless of who they ended up facing in the finals. And that was saying a lot with the 2 teams in the Western Conference being the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder, 2 of the most dominant teams we had seen all year long. In the finals, they ended up getting matched up with the Spurs coming off their 7-game series with the Thunder. The Knicks were seen as the favorite in the series, and we were getting a rematch of the NBA Cup Finals, and a rematch of the last time the Knicks were in the finals where they faced the Spurs. They came out swinging, taking the first 2 games in San Antonio and bringing their win streak to 13 games. An incredible feat. When the series came back to New York, the Spurs took the first game and looked to have reopened the series. And they honestly took that momentum into Game 4 as they took a commanding 29-point lead. This is when we saw what this Knicks team was really about, as they fought all the way back from down 29 and ended up taking Game 4 thanks to OG and his hand of God, as Kat was saying. This had not just New York rocking, but the team rocking as well, and almost a surefire lock to take Game 5 and win it all. But this is not looking like the case, as they were down double digits for a chunk of the game, looking like a completely different team, and it was Brunson versus the world. But in this battle, Brunson won. He put up 45 points, scoring almost half the team's points in this game, and led the Knicks right back into the lead. It was a hard-fought fourth quarter going back and forth, but the Knicks ultimately came out on top and won, with Jalen Brunson winning Finals MVP. There's a lot of talk about how OG was the Finals MVP going into this game if they were to win. Brunson put that narrative to rest with his 45-point performance. He looked incredible out there. This brought their Knicks their first championship since 1973, an incredible moment for the entire city, and an incredible moment for Rick Brunson and Jalen Brunson. Their father-son duo had won their championship after Rick wasn't able to do it the last time the Knicks were in the finals. I think the best thing I saw after the win was just how much it meant to Jalen Brunson. Had that towel over his head crying, his teammates supporting him. At the interview, he just had nothing to say. He had no words. It was super cool to see not just the Knicks win the championship, but a guy like Jalen Brunson, who's been counted out being a small guard his whole career, lead a team and be the best player in a championship winning team. There's all this stuff from Becky Hammond saying that he was too small to be the best player on the championship team. He put that all to rest. This is an incredible run from this team, and this is an incredible run from Jalen Brunson. It's cool to see him, Josh Hart, and Mikal Bridges win here after winning at Villanova. It's just super unfortunate that Dante DiVincenzo was not able to be a part of this. And as a Warriors fan, it was super cool to see Mike Brown win as a head coach. But now as the season's come to an end, what's next for this New York Knicks team? As we all know, they are NBA champions. They captured their first championship since 1973, ending a 53-year title drought and completing the remarkable turnaround under Leon Rose. This roster was built a little bit differently than most champions. The Knicks won with a starting lineup almost entirely assembled through trades and free agency, showing an aggressive team-building approach rather than relying primarily on drafting and developing stars. The bench became a major strength during their run. After being a huge weakness in previous playoff runs and even during the season this year, New York's second unit was one of the best in the postseason and played a key role in their championship run. But as they enter the open market, luxury tax and the aprons are concerning. Mikal Bridges' new extension pushes the Knicks near the first apron, and retaining key free agents could push them over the second apron, limiting roster flexibility and putting a ton of pressure onto what they can do in the draft, and also opening up the idea of having to make sacrifices via trade. But honestly, for them, retaining their depth is a top priority. The front office's biggest challenge is bringing back important contributors like Mitchell Robinson, Landry Shamet, Jose Alvarado, and Jordan Clarkson without compromising financial flexibility. Landry Shamet was one of the league's best bargain signings during the season. Shamet provided valuable shooting all season long and was historically efficient during the Eastern Conference Finals, and honestly the whole playoffs. It felt like every shot he put up was going to go in, making him a priority free agent as the team heads into the offseason. As for another guy on that list, Mitchell Robinson, his future is crucial with this team. Robinson remains one of the team's most impactful defensive players and provides the team with the many abilities that Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't really excel at. A great complementary piece to that lineup. He could either sign an extension before free agency or become one of the most sought-after centers in the open market. He won't be cheap and could honestly look to test the waters after really showing off his impact in the last 2 seasons. He is a guy that the Knicks took a chance on in the 2018 draft, and he has stuck with the team ever since. I'm sure this will play a huge role in his decision, as New York is definitely home for him and it has been for his entire career. Speaking of the big man, Karl-Anthony Towns could be the next in line for an extension on this team. While his scoring dipped in the playoffs, Towns became a key playmaker and floor spacer after Mike Brown made some adjustments to the offensive scheme, which allowed Cat to thrive and be extremely impactful, reinforcing his importance to the championship core, even after tons of discussion around the deadline of him possibly being moved. Other extension candidates include guys like Miles McBride, Josh Hart, Tyler Kolek, and Jose Alvarado. And with the Knicks' current cap table, there might be some tough decisions made when it comes to when and if these players get extended. I think it's a no-brainer that Josh Hart gets an extension. He is probably the most impactful and crucial player to this roster. Every time he's on the floor, there's a different intensity, a different drive. He's kind of like an undersized power forward. He rebounds extremely well. He will hit the big shots when he has to. He gets to the hoop. He runs a little bit of point guard wearing pick and roll, and he defends. Boy, does he defend. Josh Hart will probably be a Knick for life as long as Jalen Brunson is here. But the other guys, Miles McBride and Jose Alvarado. Miles McBride missed a ton of time with injury this season, but he is definitely a spark plug off the bench that is a huge piece to this team. Isn't really a great point guard, but is definitely one of those kind of 2-guard options that will come in and hit his shots when he has to. Could see him getting an extension just because of how important he was to this team this year. Tyler Kolek, super young. He has filled in as a starting point guard during injury time for this Knicks team and has looked pretty solid. I don't think they'll rush to extend him just because he hasn't shown too much in his time here. And lastly is Jose Alvarado, the hometown kid. Everyone saw the interview after Game 4 when he said that he could have cried when he hit that shot in Madison Square Garden. He's just a passion player. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to extend him early or just let a contract play out and then re-sign him a little bit later. But he's a guy that I think will stick around on this team just because he fits that culture. He fits the drive that they have. Luckily for them, though, the championship core is largely intact, with Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Karl-Anthony Towns, OG, and Josh Hart all under contract. New York enters next season as a legitimate contender to repeat, and after what they showed in the entire playoff run, I'm sure many are going to have them as the favorite. But that second apron and that cap table is definitely creeping up on them. This team is going to get expensive, and they're going to get expensive fast. It's going to start getting super tough to build around these guys, so they might as well capitalize on the window while they still have it. In order to solidify another run at a championship, this roster still has a few needs that they need to address. Even after winning the title, the Knicks could still use another backup big man, additional rim protection, and more shooting off the bench. The Knicks can look to address at least one of these in the draft, where they have to pick 24 and could look to target a big man like Terrace Reed Jr., or go after a depth piece that could provide great shooting with a guy like Isaiah Evans. Reed would come in and give some security to them at the 5 off the bench if they aren't able to retain Mitchell Robinson. He'd provide an incredible paint presence and rebound at an elite level, while also being a great pick and roll option for guys like Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. Isaiah Evans is an elite shooter and a natural scorer with deep range, effortless shot making, and supreme confidence. He projects to be a versatile two-way wing whose length, improving defense, and competitiveness which allow him to impact winning on both ends of the floor. Either one of these guys would be a great addition to this Knicks team. I've seen a lot of fans that really want Isaiah Evans to come just because of his ability to shoot. He can sort of address the lack of shooting they have on the bench there. But honestly, I think a guy like Terrace Reed would be big. There was that issue with big men during the season. I know it wasn't really an issue during the playoffs, but just to have another good big option. I know they have Mohamed Diawara, who's incredible. Doesn't play too much, but when he does, super impactful. He'll hit his shots. He'll fight down low. He'll battle. A fan favorite for sure. But a guy like Terrace Reed would be really big for them, and they could take him away from the Lakers, who I think might draft him right afterwards. A lot to think about for them as they go into the draft. Overall, though, fresh off their first championship in over 5 decades, The Knicks ended the offseason focused on retaining elite depth, managing growing salary cap pressures, and keeping a championship caliber roster together for another title run. Congratulations to the New York Knicks on winning the 2025-2026 NBA championship.